Welcome back to Inside the Philippines, where we sit down with the men who came here looking for something, a second chance, a bit of warmth, a way out of the dark, and we let them tell you, in their own words, exactly what it cost them. Tonight's story belongs to a man we're calling Brendan, 61 years old, from County Clare on the west coast of Ireland. For 40 years, he was a lineman with the ESB, the fella up the pole in the wind and the rain, putting the power back on for the rest of us while we sat warm inside. A steady man, a careful man, the kind of man who spent his whole working life around things that could kill him and never once got careless. And yet, what brought Brendan halfway across the world isn't what you'd expect. And what nearly happened to him here? Well, most foreign men who come to these islands have never heard of the thing that almost trapped him. There's a law in this country, a real one. And Brendan came within a hair's breadth of finding out about it the hard way, from the inside of a very serious problem, in a country that was never going to be on his side. This one's going to stick with you. Not because he was greedy, or stupid, or chasing anything sordid. Just the opposite. That's what makes it land. Before we get into it, after hearing so many of these stories on this channel, we put together a guide covering what we've learned from all of them. The patterns that come up again and again. It's linked down in the description if you want it. Right. That's enough from me. Here's Brendan's story. In his own words. Where do you even start with a thing like this? I suppose you start with the poles. 40 years I was up them. ESB, that's the electricity board for anyone not from home. I did the lines all around Clare, out towards Enestimon, up the coast where the wind comes in off the Atlantic and takes the roof off you. When a storm knocked the power out at 3 in the morning, I was one of the fellas they'd ring. Pull the boots on, out the door, up the bucket in the lashing rain to sort the fault while the whole townland sat in the dark waiting on me. And I'll tell you what, I was good at it. Not boasting. It's just true. You don't last 40 years in that trade being careless, because careless men in that trade don't get to be old men. You learn the procedure. You respect the thing that can hurt you. You isolate the line. You test it dead. You earth it. And only then do you put your hand near it. Do it right, and you go home to your tea. Cut a corner, and they're carrying you down. That was my whole life. Danger you can manage, as long as you follow the method and you don't cod yourself. Funny that. Hold on to it. You'll see why later. Now, Maureen. 40 years married. We met at a dance in Ennis when I was barely 20, and that was that, really. Never looked at another woman, never wanted to. She was the sharp one, the funny one. I was the quiet lump beside her, and I was happy to be it. We never had the children, which was its own sorrow, but we had each other, and by God, that was enough. That was plenty. And then, one ordinary Tuesday, she was standing at the kitchen counter, and she made a sound. I'll not describe it. And she went down. Heart. I did everything they teach you. I did it right. The way I do everything right. The ambulance came up from the town as fast as they could, and it wasn't fast enough. She was gone on the kitchen floor before they got the door open. 40 years. And no warning. No long illness where you get to say the things. No goodbye. Just a Tuesday. And then no more Tuesdays with her in them. Sorry. Give me a second. Right. So, people at the funeral kept saying it to me the way they do. How are you keeping, Brendan? And I'd say, sure, look, it is what it is. That's what I said. Over and over. It is what it is. which is a grand thing to say when you can't say the true thing, which is that the floor's gone out from under you, and you don't know how you're meant to keep standing. I couldn't stay in the house. That was the thing I couldn't manage. Every room had her in it. I'd come down in the morning and go to make 2 cups of tea out of pure habit, and then stand there like an Egypt with the second cup. Couldn't sleep, couldn't sit. The silence in that house was a physical thing, pressing on my ears. So I sold it. The house in Ennis, the house we'd been in, the guts of 30 years. Sold it inside 8 months, which the neighbors thought was in decent haste, and maybe it was. But I couldn't be in it. And here's a strange thing that happens. You sell the house, and the pensions after coming through, and the bit you'd saved, and all of a sudden there's a number in the bank account that a working man like me had never seen in his life. 150,000 euro, near enough. More money than I'd ever held. And do you know what it's worth? A number like that, when there's nobody in the house to spend a Tuesday evening with? Nothing. Not one thing. I'd have burned every cent of it for one more ordinary evening, with her giving out to me about the telly. I was drinking a bit much. I'll be honest with you there. Not falling down, but every evening on my own, just to get the edges off the quiet. And then Dinny rang me. Dinny's a Limerick fella. I knew him years back through the union. Widower himself. Lost his wife a good while before I lost mine. And somewhere in there, he'd upped and gone to live in the Philippines, a place called Dumaguete, which I couldn't have found on a map to save my life. He rang me for something else entirely, some union pension business, and he heard it in my voice, I suppose, the state of me. And he said, "Brendan, you want to get yourself out of that house and into a bit of sun. I'm telling you, the day I landed here, the weight came off me. The loneliness. It just lifts." I said, sure, I'll think about it, the way you do. But I couldn't stop thinking about that one word. Lifts. I wanted that. God, I wanted it. Not a woman. I want to be clear about that, because I've heard how these things sound. I wasn't off chasing romance at 61. I just wanted the weight off for 5 minutes. Warmth on my bones. Somewhere the grief mightn't follow me quite so close. So I booked a flight. 3 weeks? Tourist visa? Just to have a look, I told myself. Just to have a look. That's the thing about telling yourself something's only a look. The flight into Dumaguete comes in low over the water, and I remember pressing my face to the window like a child. Green everywhere. Palm trees and tin roofs flashing in the sun, and the sea that ridiculous blue you only ever see on a postcard. Then the door of the plane opened, and the heat walked in and hit me in the chest like a wet towel. 30-odd degrees, and the air so thick you could nearly chew it. I stood on the tarmac in my good jacket. I'd packed a jacket, if you don't mind, coming to the tropics, and the sweat was running down my back before I got to the terminal. An Irishman's body isn't built for it. 40 years of Atlantic rain, and here I was drowning in air. But Dinny was right. God help me, he was right. He was there at the little airport, brown as a nut, in shorts and flip-flops, grinning at the cut of me in my jacket. "Ah, Brendan, you Egypt," he says. "What are you wearing?" And he threw an arm round me, and I'll not lie to you, I near went at it. First bit of human warmth I'd had in the best part of a year that wasn't somebody with their head tilted asking how I was keeping. He'd a tricycle waiting. If you've never seen one, it's a motorbike with a little sidecar bolted on, painted every color God made, and it rattles along like it's about to shake itself to bits. We went buzzing into the town with the wind and the diesel fumes in my face, past the sorry stores, little shops, really, run out of the front of people's houses, selling everything through a wire grill, single cigarettes, Sachets of shampoo, warm Coke. Basketball courts everywhere. Every spare bit of concrete had a hoop on it, and young lads playing in the heat. And the noise. That's the thing that stays with you. Karaoke coming out of 3 houses at once. Somebody murdering a Whitney Houston number. Roosters going even though it was the middle of the afternoon. Church bells, tricycles, the lot. Home? You could stand in a field in Clare and hear nothing but the wind. Here there was no such thing as nothing. Dinny had me set up in a little apartment near the Rizal Boulevard, the seafront, where everyone walks in the evening when the sun's going down and the heat lets you breathe. First few evenings we'd sit out there with a couple of San Miguels, watching the families and the courting couples go by, and the ache in me, do you know? It did ease. It genuinely did. It didn't go, but it loosened its grip a bit, the way Dinny said it would. Now, I want to be honest with you here, because this is the part that matters. One was not a green fella coming into this. I'd read the horror stories. I'd sat up half the night before I flew watching the very kind of thing you're watching now. God help me. Men my age going on about the Filipina they met on the Filipino Cupid, who they'd sent a fortune to and never met. Men fleeced blind, sending their pension every month to some young one who was chatting 6 other lads at the same time. And I said to myself, Brendan, you'll not be that Egypt. You're a careful man. You don't go up a live pole and you don't go on those apps. I'd no interest in the apps at all. Wouldn't have known how to work one. My whole guard was up against that. The online carry-on, the video calls, the good morning my love texts, the Gcash. That was the danger, as far as I understood it. Do you see what I did there? I'll tell you now so you don't miss it, because I missed it at the time. I'd isolated one line. I'd tested the one wire I thought was live, and I'd earthed it, and I was very pleased with myself. And I walked right past all the others. Anyway, there was a little bakery cafe, a street back from the boulevard. Panaderia, they'd call it. Sold the pan de sal in the mornings, these little bread rolls, and did a coffee and a bit of breakfast. I took to going in of a morning because Dinny would still be in the Liba till all hours, and I'm up at 6, no matter what country I'm in. 40 years of early starts doesn't leave you. And there was a girl worked the till. Rhea. I'm not going to sit here and tell you she was some great beauty, because that's not it. And it wouldn't be fair. She was. There was just an easiness to her. 34, she told me later. Neat, quick, a lovely laugh on her. And she copped straight away that I was fussy about the tea. Because they don't do it right out there, you see. They'd give you the hot water and the little sachet and the milk that comes out of a tin, and I like it a certain way. And the first morning, I must have made some class of a face. And the second morning, without me saying a word, she has it done, the way I'd fiddled it the day before. And she puts it down, and she says, "For you, Sir Brendan, the Irish way." And she laughed. Sir Brendan? I don't know why that got me. It was the sir and the cheek in it at the same time. I started going in every morning. And it wasn't, I want to be clear, it wasn't some carry-on. I was a man of 61 having his breakfast, but she'd ask after me. She noticed the morning I came down the step from the boulevard wrong and winced. My knees are gone from 40 years up ladders, and she says, "Your knees, sir?" My father also. It's the cold work. And I said, "Sure, it's hardly cold here," and she laughed again. She asked after me. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Nobody had asked after me, the real me, not the widower, in a long, long time. Maureen used to notice the knees. Maureen used to have the tea right. And here's what I told myself. And I told myself it very firmly, like a man double-checking his own work. This isn't the horror story. I didn't go looking for her on any app. I didn't send anybody a penny across the internet. I walked into a bakery for a bit of breakfast, like any man might. And there happened to be a decent, hard-working young woman behind the till who was kind to a lonely old fella. This one found me. I didn't go shopping for her. That felt like the whole difference in the world to me at the time. I'd tested the line. I was sure it was dead. I'd tested the wrong line. My 3 weeks were nearly up before I properly admitted to myself I wasn't going home yet. I extended the visa. That's an easy thing to do out there. You go into the Bureau of Immigration, pay your money, and they stamp you another month or two. A few thousand pesos. Nothing to it. I told myself it was the weather, the knees liked the heat, all that. But I knew. I was going in for the pan de sal every morning, and I'd have gone whether I was hungry or not. Ria started sitting with me when the cafe was quiet. Just for a few minutes at first. She'd bring her own little cup and sit across the plastic table and we'd talk. And she was easy to talk to. That's the thing I keep landing on. Not forward, not fishing. She'd ask me about Ireland, about the cold, about the work up the poles. She thought that was mad altogether, a man climbing up in a storm. And she'd laugh at me. And I hadn't been laughed at in a good way in a long time. I told her about Maureen. I hadn't told anyone, not properly. But I told Ria. One wet morning with the rain hammering the tin roof of the cafe so loud we had to lean in to hear each other. And she didn't do the head tilt. She didn't say, "I'm so sorry for your loss." She just went quiet and put her hand flat on the table near mine, not touching. And after a while she said, "She was lucky, your Maureen, to have a man who stays." And that was it. That undid me a bit, that did. She was Catholic, of course. Nearly all of them are out there. It's a Catholic country to the bones. The churches packed on a Sunday, the fella on the tricycle with a rosary hanging off the mirror, the whole thing. And I'm lapsed myself, 30 years lapsed. But there's something in an Irishman that never fully leaves the church. And when she talked about God bringing me to Dumaguete for a reason, it didn't sound like a line. It sounded like something she genuinely believed. I think she did believe it. I still think that. She brought me to meet the family after maybe 3 weeks of the mornings. They lived a fair bit out of town, down a rough track off the national road, a cluster of houses all belonging to the one family the way they do out there. Concrete block, tin roofs, a bahay kubo, one of the little bamboo huts, out the back where the grandmother sat. Chickens everywhere, a tethered goat. And children, God, children everywhere. Nieces and nephews and cousins. I never did get the count straight. And they received me like royalty. That's the only word. The mother, Nanay they call the mother, took my 2 hands in hers and said, "Salamat, salamat." Thank you, thank you. Though I'd done nothing yet. They'd killed a chicken. There was rice and this sour soup, sinigang and lumpia, the little spring rolls, and they put the best of everything in front of me and sat watching me eat it, delighted. The kano at the table. I could see it lifted them, having me there. I didn't fully understand what that meant yet. I thought it was just that they were warm people. And they are warm people. I want to be very clear on that, because it would be the easiest thing in the world for me to sit here now and paint the whole lot of them as vultures. And it wouldn't be true, and it wouldn't be fair. They were kind to me. Some of that kindness was real. I still believe some of it was real. The first bit of money was the mother's tablets. It came up natural as anything. Ria mentioned, not asking, just talking, that Nane had the high blood pressure and the medicine from the mercury drug was dear, and they'd run short that month. 4,000 pesos it was, for the couple of months' supply. About €60. €60? I'd spend that on a round for the lads at home without thinking. I said, "Give me none of that. I'll get it." And I pressed the notes on Ria, and she wouldn't take them at first. That's the bit I want you to hear. She wouldn't take them. She got embarrassed, went red, said, "No, Sir Brendan, it's okay." And I had to nearly force it into her hand. And when she did take it, she was mortified. And do you know what that did? It shut the door on every suspicion I might have had. A woman scamming you doesn't blush taking the money. That's what I told myself. I thought, there's my proof. There's the difference between this and all those horror stories. This one doesn't want my money. I'm having to push it on her. I've thought about that a lot since, whether the blush was real. And here's the honest answer, the one that's harder to sit with than she was a con artist. I think it probably was real. I think she genuinely was mortified. And I think the mortification and the taking of the money can both be true at the same time, and that's a thing my head couldn't hold at 61 years of age. Because where I'm from, a person who's ashamed to take your money doesn't take your money. Out there, it's different. There's a thing they have, utang na loob, the debt of gratitude, and the eldest daughter carries the family on her back, whether she likes it or not. And a foreign man is, well, you're a blessing sent to lift the whole crowd of them out of it. She can be ashamed and grateful and doing her duty by her mother all at the one time. None of it cancels the others out. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was I'd handed over €60 to help a sick woman get her tablets. And the girl who took it was decent enough to be embarrassed by it, and I felt, for the first time since Maureen went into the ground, I felt useful. Like a man again. Like somebody who fixes the thing that's broken. That's a powerful drug, that feeling, for a man who's spent his whole life being the one they call. I'd have paid a lot more than €60 for it. Turns out I was going to. The rains came properly in the September, and with them came the roof. Typhoon season out there isn't like a bit of bad weather at home. The sky goes the color of a bruise, and then it just opens. Rain like you've never seen, coming down in ropes, the drains overflowing in minutes, the whole street a brown river. And the family's house, out on the track, had a roof that was half gone already. Rusted tin, a few sheets held down with rocks and hope. Ria showed me a photo on her phone of the ceiling of the back room where the water came through, a big brown stain spreading like a map, the kids' mattresses shoved into the corner to keep dry. She didn't ask. I want that on the record, too. She never once said, "Will you pay for it?" She just showed me the photo, worried, and said her brother-in-law knew a man who could do it before the big storms came, but the materials were dear this year. 85,000 pesos it came to, the GI sheets, the timber, the labor, about €1,400. And I stood there and did the sum in my head the way I would with anything. And €1,400 to keep a family of, God, I don't even know, a dozen of them, dry through a typhoon season. I'd earned worse than that in a bad week of overtime up the poles in a Clare winter. It was nothing to me. It was a new roof to them, the difference between the children sleeping dry or wet. What class of a man says no to that? So I paid it. Cash, straight to Ria, and she handled the man. And when it was done, they had me out to see it. and the whole family stood in the yard looking up at this bright new silver roof glinting in the sun. And Nane was crying and holding my hands again, Salamat, Salamat. And the little ones were running about. And I stood there in the heat with a San Miguel that somebody'd pressed into my hand, and I felt, do you know what I felt? I felt like I belonged to something again. That's the thing nobody tells you about the grief. It's not just that you miss the person. It's that you stop belonging anywhere. You're nobody's husband, nobody's anything. And here was a whole family looking at me like I was the sun itself. Of course it felt good. It'd feel good to anyone. I moved in with Ria not long after. Or, I say, moved in. I rented a place, a decent wee apartment back near the boulevard, P25,000 a month, about €400. And she was there most of the time, and her things were there. And that was that. Nobody ever sat down and had the conversation. It just happened, the way the roof happened, the way all of it happened. No decision you could point at. And the allowance started around then too, and this is the one I look back on and shake my head. Because there was never a word said about it. First month, I gave her $20,000, about €320, for the household, the food, her bits, whatever she needed. Because she'd no wage now, really. She'd cut back her hours at the cafe to be with me. Grand. But then the second month I just did it again. Because it was expected. Not demanded. Expected. It had become a thing that happened on a certain day of the month, the same as the rent. And I'd wired myself into it without ever once deciding to. That's $45,000 a month going out, near enough, before I bought so much as a bottle of water. €700 every month. And me with no wage coming in either, just the pension trickling in from home and the lump in the bank going down instead of up for the first time in my life. Now, the signs. People watching this will be shouting at their screen, and fair enough. So let me tell you about the signs. And let me tell you the exact lie I told myself about each one, because that's the only useful part of a story like this. Sign 1. The family had, without anyone saying it, made me the bank. Any bother. A cousin's phone got robbed. A nephew needed shoes for school. Somebody's pig died. It found its way to me through Ria, gentle, never pushy. And I told myself, that's not them using me. That's closeness. That's what family is out here. I'm one of them now. Wasn't I only delighted to be one of them? Sign 2, and this is the one that should have stopped me dead. I mentioned, one evening, casual, that I ought to think about going back to Ireland for a few weeks in the new year, sort out some bits, see my brother. And Ria went quiet. Not upset exactly. Quiet. And then, for 2 or 3 days, she was off, cool with me. And when I asked her what was wrong, she got teary and said she was frightened I'd go home and not come back, that men do that she'd be left shamed in front of the whole family. And I held her and told her, don't be daft. Of course, I'll come back. And I felt like a heel for even mentioning it. I called that devotion. I thought, God love her. She's that attached to me she can't bear the thought of me leaving. What a thing, at my age, to be wanted like that. I know. Say it. I can hear you saying it. But put yourself in it. 61, wife in the ground a year, and a woman weeps at the thought of you getting on a plane. You tell me you'd have read that right the first time. You tell me your head wouldn't have taken the nice explanation over the ugly one. There was one who did read it right, mind. Ria's cousin, a young lad, quiet fella, worked in Cebu and came back the odd weekend. At a family lunch, lechon, the whole roast pig, some occasion or other, He caught me on my own by the drinks, and he said, "Lo, be careful, sir. My family." And he sort of nodded at the whole crowd of them. And before he could finish, one of the aunties called him sharp in Visayan, and he shut his mouth and moved off and never said another word to me the rest of the day. I noticed it. I did. But I filed it under family politics, some falling out between him and the rest. Jealousy, maybe. I didn't chase it. Should have chased it. Didn't. And then, in the November, Ria's sister sat me down about the Sari Sari store. The Sari Sari store was the sister's idea, but it came at me through Ria, the way everything did. Marites, the sister was. Older than Ria, sharper. 3 kids, a husband who was on and off the fishing boats and mostly off. And the notion was this. There was a spot on the corner near the family houses, a little lean-to that could be done up, and if they'd the capital to stock it proper. The sacks of rice, the crates of soft drinks, the load for the phones, the sachets of everything, coffee, shampoo, laundry soap. It could be a real going concern. A proper store, not the few bits in a window. Something that'd bring in a steady bit and stand on its own 2 feet. 200,000 pesos, they reckoned, to do it right. Near enough, 3,200 euro. And it was put to me so nicely. Para sa pamilya, Ria said. For the family. Not a handout. An investment. Do you see? A business. Something that'd mean they wouldn't have to come asking anymore. That they'd stand on their own. Marites had it all thought out. Even had a little copybook with the sums in it. What a sack of rice cost wholesale down at the Gaisano, and what you'd sell it for by the Ganta. She'd done her homework. It wasn't a mad idea at all, that's the thing. As a business, it half made sense. And here's where I want you to notice something, because I only noticed it myself much later. I hesitated. For the first time in the whole thing, I hesitated. The roof, the tablets, the allowance, I'd done all that without a blink. But $3 grand for the sister's shop, that was the one where I went, hang on now. Not because I couldn't afford it. I could. But somewhere in the back of the old lineman's brain a little needle had twitched. Something about it being the sister, 1 step removed, and a lump sum, and the copybook that was maybe a shade too ready. So I said I'd think about it. That's all. I'd think about it. And the temperature of the house dropped about 10 degrees. Nothing you could put a name on. Nobody gave out to me. But the warmth just cooled. Nane was a bit shorter with me. Marites stopped meeting my eye. And Ria got quiet in that way she had. And when I asked her about it, she said, No, it's fine. It's okay if you don't want. In a voice that made it very clear it was not okay at all. There was a sulk on the whole house, and I was meant to feel it and fix it. And I did feel it. God help me, I felt it powerful. Because I'd got used to being the son, hadn't I? I'd got used to the salamats, and the warmth, and belonging, and here it was being switched off at the wall, and I didn't like the cold one bit. Amazing how quick you'll reach for your wallet to get the heat back on. That's the whole trick of it, really, when you stand back. They never had to ask twice. They just had to go quiet. But I still didn't say yes. Not yet. I said I'd think about it a while longer, and I sort of half meant to come round to it, and things stayed frosty. Now around this same time, the money side of things had started to sit on me a bit. I'd never been a man to lose track of a shilling. 40 years I'd every receipt, every job costed. And one wet evening in the apartment, Ria gone to her sister's, I sat down with a mug of tea and actually added it up. Properly. On the back of an envelope, like my father would have. The tablets, the roof, the rent since I'd taken the place, the allowances, month on month, The extension fees, the odd hospital bit for an auntie, the shoes, the phone that got robbed, this and that and the other. Guts of €9,000 in a handful of months. Now, 9,000 out of 150 isn't ruin. I know that. I'm not going to sit here and cry poverty over 9 grand when there's men on this channel lost the shirt off their back. But it wasn't the number that got me. It was the shape of it. I looked at that envelope and I saw a line on a graph, and it was only going one way, and it was picking up speed, and the sorry store was the next step up, and there'd be a step after that, and a step after that. I'd spent my whole life reading loads and currents and how much a thing could take before it failed. And I looked at that envelope and I thought, this circuit has no breaker on it. There's nothing in this to stop it. It just keeps drawing until there's nothing left to draw. That frightened me more than any single request had. And then I did the thing that set the whole reckoning off, and I did it innocent as you like. I mentioned to Ria, gently, over dinner at a little mang inasal we liked, that I was thinking I'd go home to Ireland after Christmas, just for a month or 6 weeks. See my brother, check on a few things, get my own head straight. I'd be back, I said. I even half believed it. And this time, the reaction wasn't the quiet. This time, it was something else. She went still, and then something crossed her face I hadn't seen before. Not sadness, closer to alarm. Fright, nearly. And she said, too fast, "You cannot just leave, Brendan." Not, "I don't want you to." You cannot. And then she caught herself and softened it into the usual, the tears, the being ashamed in front of the family. "Don't leave me." But I'd heard the first version. You cannot just leave. I didn't know what to make of it. I turned it over half the night. It was a couple of days after that I was at a get-together. A few of the expats Dinny knocked around with, beers on a rooftop bar off the boulevard, and I was only making conversation, moaning a bit the way you do, and I said something about maybe calling it a day here, heading back home to Ireland, sorting myself out. And this older Australian fella across the table, Kev, big weathered lump of a man, been out there donkey's years. He put his beer down very slowly, and he looked at me, and he said, "Mate, before you do anything, sit down. You need to hear about a law they've got here." And something in how he said it put the hair up on my neck. Kev had me sit down, and he got another 2 San Miguels in, and he told me the whole of it. RA 9262, he called it. The Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act. And before you switch off thinking this is going to be a lecture, stay with me, because this is the part 1-500 want a man to hear if I could only tell him one thing. It's a real law, a serious one, and a proper one at its heart. It's there to protect Filipino women from men who batter them or abandon them and their children with nothing. Nobody sane argues with that. But here's the sting in it for the likes of me. The violence in it isn't only fists. It covers what they call psychological abuse and economic abuse. And economic abuse can include, are you listening, the withdrawal of financial support. Denying money to a woman you've been supporting. Kev leaned across the table and he said it plain. "Mate, you've been keeping her, keeping the whole clan. In the eyes of that law, you're in a relationship with financial obligations. You stand up one day and cut it off and fly home. She can walk into the barangay and then the fiscal and file on you. Psychological and economic abuse. And here's the kicker." He let it sit. "They can slap a whole departure order on you. You don't leave. Passport's no good to you. You sit here, maybe a year, maybe more, while it grinds through the court, and plenty of fellas just paid up, big money, whatever they asked, just to be let go home. I sat there with the karaoke going somewhere below us, some young one giving it socks on a Bon Jovi number, and the warm beer going flat in my hand, and I swear to you, the bottom went out of the evening. Because, do you see what he'd just described? He'd described a live circuit I'd been standing in for months and never once tested. I'd been so proud of myself, so careful. I'd isolated the one wire I thought was dangerous, the online scam, the dating app, the fella sending his pension into the void, and I'd walked in under all the others with my bare hands. This wasn't about whether Rhea loved me or didn't. This was law. This was the state. This was a thing that didn't care what was in anyone's heart. And I'd wired myself into it with every peso, every month, nice and steady, building the very case that could hold me. Now, I want to be fair, because it'd be easy not to be. That law is not there to trap sad owl widowers. It's there because there are genuine bad men, and genuinely abandoned women and children, and I've no quarrel with the intention of it. But a tool made for one job can do another, and there are people out there, and families out there, who know exactly what it can do, and how a frightened Kano will pay to make it go away. I didn't confront her. That's not my way. You don't stand roaring at a fault. You isolate it, you test it. You find out what you're dealing with before you put a hand near it. So I went quiet myself for a few days, watched, listened, and I did one thing. I went to see Rhea's cousin, the young lad, the quiet one from Cebu, the one who'd tried to warn me by the drinks that day and got shut up. I found him on his own, and I asked him straight, man to man, was there anything I ought to know? And he wouldn't look at me at first. Then he said low, that he'd heard Marites talking, weeks back, asking a fella she knew, some clerk, some friend of a friend who worked around the fiscal's office. What happens, hypothetical-like, if a foreigner supporting a family just ups and leaves? What could be done? What could be filed? Weeks back, before I'd ever breathed a word about going home. They'd had the map drawn before I'd taken a step. The lad felt terrible telling me. He did. He kept saying, sorry, sir. Sorry. She's my cousin. I don't want trouble. And I told him he'd done nothing wrong, that he was the only straight one in the whole business. And I meant it. And here's the thing I've had to carry since. The thing that's harder than if it had all been a clean swindle. I don't believe Rhea planned it. I don't. I think Rhea, God help her, was fond of me in her way. And I think she was also the eldest daughter workhorse of that family, carrying the lot of them on her back. And I think when the money looked like walking out the door, the family reached for the thing that would keep it. And Rhea got carried along in it, torn, probably sick over it, but carried. Both things, the fondness and the trap. Both true at the one time. That's the part my Claire head still can't fully hold, even now. But I'll tell you what I did know, sitting on that rooftop with Kev, cold beer in my hand, and the Bon Jovi murdering away below. I knew I'd touched a line I couldn't see. I knew it was live, and I knew that the careful thing, the only thing, was to get myself off it properly by the procedure. Not to panic, not to bolt, not to do the one thing that'd bring the whole current down on me. I rang a lawyer the next morning, a Filipino one, a proper one in Dumaguete recommended, not some fella off a forum, and I said, tell me how a man gets himself home, safely, by the book. The lawyer was a woman, as it happened, a Tywer Villaflor, a brisk sort in a proper office up near the Silliman University end of town. Aircon humming, a little statue of the Santo Niño on the shelf behind her. And she didn't laugh at me, which I'd half expected. She'd seen it before. That was the thing that steadied me and frightened me both. She'd seen it many times. She confirmed the whole of what Kev had said and took the drama out of it, which is what you want from a professional. Yes, RA 9262 was real. Yes, economic abuse could in principle be alleged. Yes, a petition could lead to a whole departure order, and a foreigner could find himself stuck. But, and here's the bit the panicking man on the forum never tells you, no case had been filed against me. Nothing existed. I was, right at that moment, a free man with a valid passport and a clean record, standing at the one point in the whole business where I still had every choice open to me. "Do not run," she said. "A man who vanishes owing support, leaving debts, a woman shamed. That is the man they file against, and they will find grounds. You will do the opposite. You will leave in good order, documented, generous, so that there is nothing to allege and no one who wants to allege it. Do it by the book, isolate the line properly. I could have kissed her." So that's what we did, and I'll tell you the shape of it, because it's the useful part. She had me stop the drip feed, but not with a bang. No dramatic cutting off, no scene. We wound it down. And then she proposed what she called an amicable settlement, a clean, one-time sum, paid openly, with a signed document, a quitclaim, both parties agreeing there were no obligations owing on either side, no complaints, nothing outstanding. In front of witnesses, notarized. 250,000 pesos. It came to, in the end, about €4,000. And I know some of you are shouting at the screen that I paid them anyway, that they got their sorry money in the end by another name and I was mugged all the same. And maybe you're right. I've turned it that way myself, on the bad nights. But here's how Addie, Villaflor, put it to me, and how I've come to see it. €4,000 to walk onto a plane a free man, with a signed paper saying no one has any claim on me, versus the alternative. A year, 2 years, stuck in the country, tens of thousands gone in legal fees and arrangements, my name in a Filipino court, and no guarantee at the end of it. It wasn't a ransom. It was insulation. It was the cost of doing the dangerous job safely instead of getting fried. Telling Rhea was the worst of it. I'll not pretend otherwise. I didn't do the roaring accusation. What would have been the good? I sat with her in the apartment, the fan going, and I told her I was going home, that it was arranged properly, that there'd be a fair settlement done through the lawyer, and that I wished her and her family well and meant it. And she cried. And here's the thing that stayed with me. I don't think all of it was performance. I've gone back and forth on it 100 times. I think part of her was genuinely losing something she'd got used to, and maybe fond of, and part of her was the eldest daughter watching the family's boat float away from the dock, and she couldn't have told you herself where the one stopped and the other started. Neither could I. Neither can I now. She signed. The family were cold as the grave about it, but they signed because Maritis, sharp as she was, could count. And a clean €4,000 in the hand was better than a war with a foreigner who'd lawyered up and might just walk anyway. Discarte cuts both ways, in the end. I flew out of Cebulan Airport with my case, connected through Cebu, and it wasn't until the wheels came up off the runway at Mactan and the islands dropped away under the wing, green going to blue, that I let the breath out of myself. First proper breath in weeks. I'm back in Ireland now, renting a small place near my brother in Ennis. Near, not in the old house. I couldn't have that. Someone else has that now, and good luck to them. I've the guts of 140,000 left of what I had, because let's be straight about the damage. The tablets, the roof, the rent, the months of allowance, the settlement, the flights, the lawyer. Call it €13,000, all in, that I'll never see again. 13,000. To learn a lesson that could have cost me 130 and a year of my life behind an invisible fence. Do you know? I count myself one of the lucky ones. I do. I got a warning from a weathered Australian on a rooftop and a scared young cousin by a drinks table. And between the two of them, they put a hand on my shoulder before I stepped on the wire. Most fellas don't get the warning. Most fellas find out the way you find out a line's live, all at once, and too late. Am I bitter? At Rhea, no, not really. At the family, a bit, if I'm honest. Mariti's drawing up her sums about the fiscal weeks before I'd said a word that I can't fully forgive. But bitter at the country, at Filipinos, not at all. It's a poor place, and a warm place, and family is everything there. And that same thing that'll carry a sick grandmother on its back will also close ranks around a wallet. And both of those are the one thing wearing two faces. I brought my loneliness and my 150 grand into the middle of that, and I'm the Egypt who didn't understand what I was walking into. That's on me. Nobody dragged me up that pole. Here's the lesson, if there's one worth carrying out of it. Grief makes you want to be needed. That's the real danger, not any woman. The hunger to matter to somebody again, so strong you'll pay anything and call it love. And generosity with no breaker on it isn't kindness. It's a fault waiting to happen. Set the boundary early, while it's still small, while you're still the one holding the switch. Because in that country, the law itself can turn your own good heart into the case against you. And by the time you feel the current, it's already too late to let go. Respect the risk, or it'll take the hand off you. That's it. That's the whole of what I know. Right. So, that's Brendan. Back home in Clare. Lighter in the pocket, but a free man, telling his story so the next fella might test the line before he grabs it. And here's what I'd leave you with. Brendan's story isn't a story about a wicked woman, and it isn't really even a story about money. It's about a good, careful man who let loneliness do his thinking for him in a country whose rules he never stopped to learn. RA 9262 is a real law, and an important one. It exists to protect vulnerable women and children, and that's a good thing. But like any powerful tool, it can be turned, and the foreign man who drifts into being a family's whole income without ever understanding what that means under the law is the man most exposed to it. The protection against that isn't cynicism. It's boundaries, set early and kindly, and knowing the ground you're standing on before you build your life on it. Stories like Brendan's are why we put that guide together. Everything we've learned from the men who've shared what went wrong, the patterns and the warnings all in one place. It's in the description if it's something you need. Look after yourselves out there. Learn the local law before you commit to anyone. Keep a little something back for yourself always. And never ever let being lonely make your decisions for you. Thanks for watching Inside the Philippines. Mind how you go, and we'll see you on the next one.